What's up, folks? It is Friday Eve, Thursday night for those who like to keep track of the days of the week, and it is also episode 182. And I'm excited to have this evening someone that I will personally say that I admired for sure because this you can't hear any audio. Can you? Everybody hear me? Ronnie, okay. I'm waiting for Mike. You can hear me as well. Thumbs up. Yeah, we're good. All right. Had to stop. Producer came in to make sure she gave me a thumbs up that everybody can hear. So hopefully, Mike, I'm waiting for Mikey to give me the signal that he can hear us once it went live because he should have been able to hear things. So let me double check just to make sure. Bring it in this way. And Mike, can you hear me? I know you're waiting in the green room. We're waiting for a thumbs up from Mike, and I'll reset the show all over again. I'll wait and see. Maybe it could have been because it all we did was go live, and he should be able to hear us. So, Mike, I don't know. Can you hear me? I'm just waiting. So I'm hoping that Mike, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Nope. Looks like you still can. I'm watching in the green room. We will get it started, folks. Give me 1 second as Mike gets his audio back up here. it's not the shirt. And for those, I'm not talking to myself. For those who can't see everybody in the background, I have Ryan, Ronnie, and Mike in the green room. So I am not talking to myself for looking weird here. It's just that things I tell you when things go live, that's what ends up happening. But Mike have to need Mike, if you can hear me, can you hear me? He's still looking at the screen. I'm wondering he might have to exit out and come back. Let me hang on, folks. I huh? Yeah, well, that's what I'm going to do here in the chat. So give me a second. La la la. It's the lovely thing. Oh, hold on. Now I got to switch the other side too. Holy moly! Yeah. I'll find out once he gives me the feedback here. If he looks at at the messages on the screen. All right, I think he's typing. Give me a second. Yeah. Adjusting the headphones here. I forgot because the other night I would have come flying out. I don't know if Mike can hear me. Mike, can you hear me? Still waiting for Mike. If he, I don't know if he can see the signal. Can you hear me? Still waiting. Because I don't know if I can. Oh, let's see. If I refresh my screen, folks, now having to go away, let me know. I'll be right back. Let's see if I refresh and maybe Mike can hear me that way. So let me reload. Give me a second. All right. Mike, can you hear me? Mike switched screens, but he can't. Oh, boy. Yeah, live stuff doesn't easy, chair. This is what happens, folks. I'm waiting for Mikey to come back to his chair. I'm trying to send him a message in a private chat, but now he walked away from his chair, so I can't. Here we go. Guys, I'm not hearing you. All right. Let me see. That's what it is. So we're waiting. I just sent him a message to see if he can exit out and then come back in, and hopefully that'll take care of the audio issue. He may have just read it. I can see him talking, but I can't hear him. Yeah, well, yeah, I'll come back in a couple of minutes. As soon as there he is. I think he finally got the message. So let's see. Exit out. We'll find out if he pops back in and be able to hear us. All right. I see the top of the ceiling. You gotta love it when things go live. Well, thanks. Maybe because you said that, that's the reason why. You're right, Ronnie. Everybody else, I swear, listen, folks, I'm not talking to myself. Believe me, everyone else will come on screen. I'm talking to everybody in the green room. So by no means am I talking to myself here, but I will bring as soon as Mikey Miss comes back, because like I said, it's all I did was go live, and for some reason, the audio went away. So we'll find out here in a second. And unfortunately, I don't have his. Mike, can you hear anything? I see your ceiling. I'm waiting to see. The art of live. It's like JG Wentworth. Exactly. It's coming, folks. I swear it. Stay tuned. It gets better. It does. I swear it. Uh, Ryan, if do me a favor, shoot him because unfortunately, shoot him an email because I'm pretty sure he's looking at it as far as on his phone, and then just let him know that if he can. He did exit out and came back, but all I see the light on in the ceiling in the room that he's in, but he's away from the laptop, so I don't know if he happen to be there or not. Rick Marcus says, go to commercial. All right. So if I go to commercial, thanks, Rick Marcus, for telling me to go to commercial. By the way, if you have not flown as of late, the greatest airline to fly, by the way, is Southwest. Southwest, it will fly you anywhere except for exactly where you want to go. Southwest, the best airline out there. Which, of course, Southwest, if you're listening, it's not true. That would be Spirit. It could be. I don't know. Well, he exited out completely. So let's see let's see if he comes back, and then if he comes in there, that could have been a possibility too. Sure, yeah. Ring the bell because he should have been. The only thing that changed is when we went live. That was it. Folks, just hang on. We have a little bit of the technical difficulty. Well, you know, while I'm here during the technical difficulties, and once Mike comes on, and I'll say it again here once he gets back online, but one thing that I do want to mention is going to come up on the screen here momentarily. You guys, if I know we all know about Philly pretzels. If you live in the Philly market, you do have the Philly pretzel. But here in Florida, in case you guys didn't know, we do have Penguin Pretzels at penguinpretzels.com. They are located in Newport Richey. And I will scroll through the screen here. Hopefully everyone can see exactly what I'm looking at here. But between mini twists, between the giraffes, from the monkeys that they have over at Zoo Tampa. And as I get to the bottom here, you start seeing dolphins, gators, something that Ryan actually might like, goldfish, starfish, traditional pretzels, mini traditionals. As you guys can see there, it's just scrolling through the screen here. And their wholesale shop is about to open up next week. So if you're in Newport Richey, right off a little road, you guys will be able to see their newest shop that will be open come next week. So If you guys have been to Frenchie's, which you can see there in the background, or you've been to Jimmy Iguana's, you'll be able to get the iguana if you're at Caddy's, or sorry, excuse me, if you're at Jimmy Iguana's. If you're at Caddy's, you will get the anchor, and if you're at Frenchie's, then you guys absolutely love the fish. So hopefully you guys can, you'll see that there. Just scroll through it. I can see it there on my screen. So as we wait, and hopefully Mikey, can you hear us? All right, good. Mikey's back now. I can do the final reset. So let me start this all over again and we'll give it take two. I told you when things go live, it's just the way it works. So let me flip this back around and we'll start all over again. All right, here we go. Take two. We'll try this again as we did have some technical difficulties, but finally we got Mikey Miss back waiting in the green room along with everyone else. And yes, I am Angel Martinez, the host of Broad Street South and also Sports Radio 102.9, the game that you guys can find over on the website, broadstsouth.com. Go to Sports Radio 102.9, click on it, and you'll be able to hear the audio live. Of course, visually, if you guys want to see the show, you can follow us on our Facebook page, the Instagram, and or right again under broadstreetsouth.com. Click on the live show, and you'll be able to click on it and see us live as well. So two ways to be able to hear it. And tonight as well, along with the other option, as soon as I fire it up here, the third option, you guys can hear us thanks to Amazon, is over on AMP Radio. So if you do have the AMP app, you can click on it, Broad Street South, and you'll be able to hear us three different ways from Sunday. So with that being said, my honor and my guest to have on tonight, and you guys remember the afternoon drive home, no one, and I mean absolutely no one, could beat Mikey Miss from 2 to 6. And if you guys do not remember, he'll remind you as soon as he comes on here. But I'm telling you that Mikey Miss had that drive time locked in. And it was so much fun because if you follow Mikey Miss like we did, from controversial, and I don't mean controversial in a bad way, what you would hear on different subjects, other broadcasters possibility, and just the phone calls in general. If you brought it to Mikey, he would bring it right back to you. But the good thing was with Mikey Miss is that if you actually had an answer to what you posted to Mike, he would either give you the credit or he will let you know there was actually a good call. So it was so many years of so much fun. And now you can listen to Mike Missanelli on the Mike Missanelli Podcast, brought to you by Bet Rivers. And that you can find on Amazon, Sprout, on Buzzsprout, also, if I remember correctly, and along with YouTube. So you can hear the audio over on YouTube. So with that being said, I welcome you to episode 182. We also have Ronnie Gent here in the house along with Ryan F. So as soon as I switch everything over, and if you guys can see, by the way, as I bring up once again, Penguin Pretzels, as you guys see on the screen there, it is penguinpretzels.com. So if you guys live in the Florida market, yes, we all love and know about Philly pretzels, but if you live in Florida, every gourmet pretzel, just think about the finest steakhouse that you go to, that is the taste that you will get from these pretzels. So Penguin Pretzels, anything that you can dream of and think of, Nick over at Penguin Pretzels can do it for you. So that being said, now I will switch things over so we can actually get the show started, bring everybody on. And we thank you once again, the viewers from all around the world, from tuning into Broad Street South. And with that being said, it is episode 182. I'm Angel, and welcome to the show. No, I was not talking to myself, everybody, because I know I look like a maniac without Ryan on the screen. But my co-host, Ryan F., here with me this evening. Ryan, it's great to see you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ryan F. It's great to be with you. No, this is not my Sergeant Sulch from Hogan's Heroes imitation with the caterpillar on my lip and my chin. No, in the immortal words of Lionel Richie, it's time to raise the roof and have some fun, ladies and gentlemen. What a legend we have on tonight to pick his brain about everything that's going on in sports Philadelphia-wise and other stuff. He's an avid golf fan, so I'm ready to go.
All right, and that also bringing on now for week number 2, our NFL analyst, former Philadelphia Eagle, former Cincinnati Bengal, and former New Orleans Saint. It is Ronnie Gent. Ronnie, I thank you for joining us again for week number 2.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Ronnie Gent. just glad to be here and ready to get some good fun going and talk about some good things going on in sports. And let's get this show on the road.
Right. Listen, what we need to do, right, before I bring Mikey on here, we need to recruit him for a weekend to come down here in Florida. So when we're over at Tampa Joe's, we can just raise the roof even higher. And with that being said, I will bring on the living legend of what is Mike Missanelli. Mikey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is an honor and a privilege, sir, to have you on the show.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. This is great. I'm glad you guys have this podcast so you can reach so many different people. It's so
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, listen, it's a lot of fun. We've been doing it now for the last 3 years. It's been a pleasure for sure. We've had a lot of great guests on. We addition now of Ronnie, which has been great. Kevin Mensch, our MLB analyst, which pretty soon that show will fire up the former Texas Ranger. So it's been fun. Now, according at least from what you've done, Mikey, for many years. First of all, thank you for the many years of radio you provided because you talk about fun from 2 to 6. And the great part about you was that you never knew what was going to happen next. Even though people say, oh, he's so predictable, he's going to say this and that. You never knew because every day was something new. Don't know how you did it, but we thank you so much for what you did from the drive time from 2 to 6.
Well, thank you. It's really nice of you to say. I got to be honest with you. I never knew what I was going to say from moment to moment. So, like, people had the right idea about, radio was so much fun because it was so freewheeling for me. When I tried to do a show with a hub, and then my brain would just spin off in different directions. And the key was bringing it back to the hub that you were talking about that was going to generate most of the conversation. So that's how I tried to do it. And I tried to do it in Philadelphia with as much honesty as possible because people here deserve honesty. I mean, this is a serious sports fan, and you can't BS this fan. And so I never tried to do it. What I said was honest from my heart. I actually believed what I was saying. I never contrived anything. And a lot of people think that that's crazy, but I had conviction on what I wanted to say because that was really the only way I knew how to do it.
No, it was really appreciated because you hear the one thing that drives me crazy. Obviously, we'll hear from New York fans, you'll hear from the Chicago fan base, and it's always they want to criticize Philly fans. But for those who don't understand it, Larry Boa, who he was down here 3 weeks ago with Philly Sports Trips, and I was able to talk to him and have fun with him. And he mentioned to the crowd that was there that day is that the Philly fan base wants to bring the best out of you. They'll also bring the worst out of you because there's certain expectations you expect out of Philadelphia. And for many people who have gone through Philly, Charles Barkley, they always bring him up because when he left from Philly, he understood what the mentality was in Philadelphia. But it took him years to realize after it was done. Michael Irvin, the same exact thing. Now a lot of people love Michael Irvin for what he does, with the NFL. So I think, Mike, the big thing is that Philadelphia, I think, is the most probably underappreciated city for sports fans because you're not getting your average fan. You're definitely not getting the dumbest fan in the world because all of us do our homework. And again, the expectations are so high that when guys come here to play, they already know what to expect. You have Jalen Hurts, who originally people said that they thought it was a bad or not such a smart deal by Howie. Now you look at what he did last year, and so now the expectations obviously are going to be a lot higher. So, am I incorrect in saying that we are obviously underappreciated here in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think we are misunderstood. And I fought that for a lot of years, and then it got to the point where I really didn't care because people can't really put their brain in the capacity of a Philly fan. And listen, there's only a couple of places where this happens. Philadelphia is one of them. Maybe Boston, it happens. I worked in New York for a couple of years, and there wasn't nearly the passion in New York. Probably because it's so fragmented. There's so many teams, there's so many loyalties that are just interspersed and divided. But in Philadelphia, it's like this is it. People take it seriously, and you can get a sociologist to try to explain that, but it is what it is. They take their sports very seriously here. They live it. It's part of their lives, and that's why you can't BS a Philly sports fan. A Philly sports fan knows when their teams are good and knows when they're not. And there's no gray area there. A lot of fan bases are just happy to be there. Philadelphia fan base is just not happy to be there. Like they expect something, and now that these teams are good, they expect winning. So the climate has changed around here too, by the way,
Oh
because
yeah,
people now are just they're so happy. At Sports Talk Radio, it was a great profession when it was miserable. I mean, let's face it. Uh, that's what made radio tick, when people are complaining, bitching, and moaning, and giving their suggestions on how things can get better. Now people are too happy, So
Yeah.
there's been a shift because the three of the teams are pretty good.
And you talk about as far as the teams here, and obviously last year, three teams obviously come up short between the Eagles, the Union, and the Phillies. But again, a productive year, no matter the way you look at it. The difference is, so the Philly fan base down here, Mikey, is much, I would say, humble and much quiet than if you were in Philly. Last year, we watched them go to Super Bowl over at Tampa Joe's. At the end, were we all disappointed? Of course. Now, there wasn't anybody going completely crazy. It was just a disappointment factor. The Eagles just couldn't, seal the deal. Same thing with the Phillies, but no one expected for the Phillies, obviously, to be in the World Series last year. I know I sure as heck didn't expect them to be there. And then the same thing with the Union. But then you look at this season, yes, the Phillies have had a rough start here. Not surprising. A lot of times when you see guys winning in spring training baseball, it comes out to be the complete opposite when it starts the regular season. But, are people are they going nuts because of it? Absolutely not. At least I don't believe so. But it's just
Actually, there have been some, like after game one, some people reacted to it. Baseball season is such a long season. Here's what we know: the Phillies are a good team. Like, they're a playoff team. Okay, they may not be the best team in the league right now, but they're good. And so, but see, when they lost to the Astros last year, people kind of thought that they weren't as good as the Astros. So there wasn't that monumental disappointment. I think that Philly fans are realistic enough to know that when they underachieve or not. Like, they don't get really upset at being beaten by a better team. They're smart enough to realize, you know what, that team probably was just a little better. So now the Sixers are a different story. If the Sixers lose in the second round this year, then you're going to see hell break loose here, because that's going to be totally disappointing. Because year after year, they're expecting different results from this team.
Let me piggyback off that, Angel, because that's one of the first things I have down here to talk to Mikey Miz about. The Sixers. Mike, I said this last year. I said it 2 years ago. The starting five is going to have to carry this team because their bench scares nobody, and they barely get any productivity from the bench. Your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, well, you're right, Ryan. I mean, it's clear to see when you measure the Sixers up against the better teams, the other teams are more potent. And they're potent because they can bring a couple guys off the bench. And you look at Milwaukee and you look at Boston, they got a little more juice than the Sixers do. So, I'm trying to be realistic about the Sixers. I don't think that they can beat Milwaukee 4 games in a series. They could win maybe 2 of those games. Boston, I don't know. Maybe they have a shot to beat Boston. I think that, even though the season series did not come out favorably for the Sixers, I think they would have a better shot to beat Boston and get to the Eastern Conference Finals than Milwaukee. So, and that's the way it's going to play out. They're locked into the 3rd seed. They get past the Nets, which they will. Here comes Boston. So, Boston with the home court advantage might be a little bit of an edge, but I don't think they're good enough. I really don't. I'm trying to figure out who they bring off the bench that can really add anything to them. And look at the contenders, and I don't want to pick on him in particular, but none of these contenders brings a George Niang off the bench and expects like points out of a guy like George Niang. He's just a guy, And Milton has shown flashes, but now he's out of the rotation. So I really don't know where the potency is coming off the bench. You're right, the starting five has to do it, and it's pretty unrealistic that a starting five has to play 40 minutes a game to get that done.
And with all that being said, if they don't make it to the finals or they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals, do the Sixers have a big decision to make? Is Embiid going to stick around? Because my feeling is Embiid might just say, look, I've done all I can do. You really haven't surrounded me with anybody as far as the bench goes. Do you think he might bolt?
No. I don't think he would pull one of those numbers where he demands that they get him out of here. I think Harden will go. I think Harden, like talking about going back to Houston, maybe that's what he wants to do. I think they would still try to put those stars around Embiid and still make it work because they're not going to be a terrible team. They just need another boost in another different direction. So maybe it's the Damian Lillard boost that they would get for next year to replace the Harden boost. But no, they can't waste Embiid's career. He's got to be the focal point. And I know people are going, well, you have to get rid of everybody. No, you don't. You don't have to get rid of everybody. You just try it again in a different way. They tried it this year. They thought they had it figured out. As it turned out, they didn't get enough potency from the guys that they acquired. So there's always a chance that you can re-rack it and do it again and get better players that will fit better.
Before I turn over to Rodney here, if you guys are tuning in on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, and or over on the AMP Radio, we have Mike Missanelli with us, the former Drive Time. I'm going to just call him the Drive Time champion just because he won from 2 to 6. But Mike, you guys can also listen to his podcast, The Mike Missanelli Show, again, brought to you by Bet Rivers. And you can find it on Amazon, Buzzsprout. Basically, where you can find Mikey Miss, you'll be able to find his audio because you can't miss him anywhere. And, of course, on YouTube as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Therefore, you guys don't miss any important segments. And the last one that I know you were with was Stephen A. Smith. So, how Stephen A. Mike, we know he's the most one of those guys. Stephen A. has no problem saying what he wants to say that's on his mind. When you get the opportunity to talk to him one-on-one, is he still the same that we see obviously on TV, or does Stephen kind of change his tune a little bit?
He's got a little bit of a slower pace, but he believes he believes what he's saying. He has conviction in what he's saying, and that's why I appreciate that because I kind of do the same thing. Stephen and I. A lot of people don't realize we worked together 2 years. I co-hosted a show with him in New York on that ESPN station in New York up there, and it was great. It was great fun to work with him. I mean, he respects me. We go back and forth on certain subjects, and he's a guy who has figured out what works and what works for him. And I don't see any phoniness in him. I don't think there's anything contrived about Stephen A. He believes what he's saying, and he usually tries to back up the argument. Now, sometimes he's wrong, and he's had to backtrack on a couple things. But I appreciate somebody who goes for it, and as long as they believe it. Like it's not like there's some guys that you can tell it's phony, and I'll just call one out. Like Skip Bayless, you can't imagine that what he's saying is true. It's just so ridiculously contrived the other way. And we talked about that with Steven when I had him on the podcast, and he said he actually believes the stuff that he says. And I go, well, then he's off. Like he's off. Like his brain is off because he can't possibly believe it. And so I always gave him credit for saying, okay, he knows what works. He has to take the contrary side. But now that I know that everything he comes out of his mouth he thinks is right, then I go, wow, I've got no use for you whatsoever.
What's interesting is you're absolutely right, though. Skip Bayless believes everything that comes out of him. Like, he's one of those commercials that you used to say back in the day. It was like, well, if someone has a microphone in front of them, well, they must be talking the truth. And Skip Bayless, I think he must, I don't know if he just sits around the shower or something else and ends up talking to him and saying, well, you know what? I know what I'm going to say tomorrow, and everybody's going to believe in it. But then you also had with Shannon Sharp not too long ago, right? There was that, again, where people said, was Shannon Sharp being truthful, or did he just give in to what Skip Bayless was talking about? So, and it's kind of hard to kind of, I don't know, to take Skip Bayless serious whatsoever. I personally don't listen to a lot of his content only because I'm not a fan. I know there's plenty of fans that probably love and enjoy him. I personally, I don't. I'd rather listen to Stephen A. Smith any day because it's just funny, especially when he goes on his Cowboys rant. Is the most hilarious thing ever because he loves picking on him as much as he possibly can. So it's just fun times with him.
Yeah, I had two story confrontations on my radio career. One was with Bayless, which is where, like, if you've ever heard people say, like, the Google Me thing that they've had on tape for a lot of years, that came in an interview with Skip Bayless. And I like nailed him to the wall on a couple parts. And I was really angry about it. He had said something that all these lazy out-of-town reporters say about Philadelphia, like, the Philadelphia fans bad, that, that old, tired routine. And so I challenged him on a lot of it, and we had a storied argument. And that's when he said, well, I don't even know who you are. And I go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you know who I am. Google me. And that's where it came from.
Yeah. Well, that soundbite was great because they would play it so many times throughout the show, and it was probably the best thing ever. And for those who don't know, I'm pretty sure you can find it on YouTube because it's absolutely great. The way you said it with conviction, it was the best thing ever. So
No, I was really angry. I don't have any tolerance to these people that rely on this crazy narrative that, oh, well, Philadelphia sports bad. Philadelphia fans bad. Like, it's such a tired, hackneyed thing now. It's like, it used to get me angry, and now I try to dismiss it. But, I fought for it against it for a long time.
yeah, that's all right. I'm pretty sure Ronnie probably heard winds of it as when he was in Philly. But Ronnie, I don't know if you have any questions for our distinguished guest here, Mike Missanelli.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Just like somebody like myself going in.
I don't see Ronnie hooked up. I'm not hearing Ronnie. So,
You're not hearing him?
no, I can't hear him.
Uh-oh.
He's blank
Uh-oh.
on my screen, so I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened either because he's. I can see him and we can hear him.
Yeah, I don't see him at all. I see you guys. I don't
You
see
hear me?
Ronnie. I hear you.
Okay.
All right.
I hear you. I hear Ryan and Angel. I don't see or
Here.
hear Ronnie right now.
Okay.
So yeah, well we can hear and see Ronnie. So Ronnie, I don't know if maybe just in case Ronnie Ronnie, if you want to exit out and come right back in, maybe you'll pop back on the screen there with Mikey.
All right.
Now I'm going to go back here to a couple comments before Ronnie pops out and pops back in. But Rick Marcus, great friend of the show. As I talked about Southwest jokingly, he works for Southwest, but he says every time I think of Mike, for some reason Steven Singer pops into my head. Well, for the many years of the commercials with Steven Singer.
Yeah, Steven was a really good client, and he loved the show. He used to listen to the show all the time. It's funny because you do this for so long. You develop so many relationships with sponsors but particularly with callers. Like there are lifetime callers that I've had, and you hear like some things that maybe they were in poor health or whatever, and you feel bad about it. And even though you really never met them, but the banter over the years bonds you with folks. And that's the one thing I miss about not doing live radio now. That everyday banter and back and forth with callers. So I really used to love that.
Well, Mike, I'll just ask you a quick question. I'm a Chiefs fan, so I heard it from Eagles fans for 2 weeks, and of course, when the Chiefs won, then they all disappeared. But what do the Eagles need to do in the off season? I see a lot of pundits say they should go all defense. They need a running back. They need this. They're all over the place. What do you think they knew to bolster up this roster for next year?
Well, I mean, listen, they're pretty. I see Ronnie now. Ronnie, so I probably can hear you. Ronnie,
going
say
on?
something. Oh, there he is.
There
I
he
got
goes.
it. I got it.
There we
So,
go.
again, it's like the Phillies. We know they're a good team. They're going to be a good team. They're a playoff team. And so what do they do to get to the next level? You just try to keep adding. Now, it was key for them to keep both their cornerbacks. I thought C.J. Gardner-Johnson was really key for them to keep, and I don't really know what happened with that situation. But and then they got Slay back. And by the way, I had a beef with Slay this week.
I saw it.
I don't quite understand it. Well, maybe we can talk through that in a couple seconds. But they obviously their defensive line has to produce. Like what are they going to get from their defensive ends this year? To me, that's key. In the middle, I don't know how much Fletcher Cox is going to help them. I thought Hargrave was a really bad loss for them. But Jordan Davis is going to take a step up. They'll probably draft somebody in that spot. They got Milton Williams. So I think they have enough of a rotation to get by. They need linebackers now, but they don't value linebackers. So I don't know. I mean, the Kobe D, maybe he does step up and they add another piece. But offensively, they're going to be good. Jalen Hurts has established himself. The running back situation, without Miles Sanders, it may take a little bit of a notch down, but Penny has to come through. I think they're going to be fine there. So they're a top team, and I expect them to be a vital participant in the playoffs. I can't see where they're going to fall on their face. They have a couple different coordinators now they have to get adjusted to, so I think they're fine.
All right, Ronnie.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, it's a pleasure to meet you. I spent
Good to meet you, Ronnie. Had you love Philadelphia or what?
I mean, it was fun, man. Nice people. Got to, when we were off, I got a chance to see the city. I just didn't. I'm not a public transportation guy because I'm a Florida guy. So it's and then the parking, you gotta be rich with that parking because once you because I'm the type of person I want to drive to a place and when I want to leave I want to leave, but that's just like I was telling them earlier. It was funny. I was called country because I had license. You know what I'm saying? They were like, everybody don't, we don't drive tractors up here, and I'm like, what? Just because I got license? But no, I was just asking earlier for somebody like myself, former player or whatnot, trying to make a splash, jumping into business. What are your recommendations? Like, what do you
Well,
think some of the
from a
guys?
player standpoint, it's interesting because there are a lot of players that get into business that don't want to step on anybody's toes, and it's natural because you guys
Right.
are a brotherhood and a fraternity. And I think you have to break through that a little bit. I think if other players think you're fair with them, they don't like to be criticized at all. So, I know they don't like to be criticized. And I know it's tough for a player to criticize a player because they know how hard it is to succeed in the business. But I think you got to have a little bit of you have to give a little give and take when you're a player and be honest because now you're working for the people who are listening to you. And you're not now in the locker room trying to be friends and teammates with guys. Your employer now are the people listening, and you have to be honest with them. The last thing you want them to think is that you're selling out because you're an ex-player and you want to protect your players. So that's the way I look at it. Now, the Slay thing is a classic example. So, so Slay, listen, I'm pretty active on Twitter, and my podcast is pretty active, and I'll just throw out some comments on Twitter every now and then. And Slay has really talked a lot lately, and the last thing I saw was a story about how he wanted to remind everybody how he was really this close to signing with the Ravens, which is fine, but it's like. So I said, have you? I just put out a question. I said, I'm kind of getting a little tired of Slay. You, meaning feedback from people.
Right.
And I got like crushed by fans who thought I was attacking their beloved player Slay. Right? And I really wasn't trying to do that. I was just trying to put a provocative question out there and have people respond to it. And then apparently he got involved with it. And he said, yeah, I can't. Like I can't take criticism from somebody who's ass at their job. Like, dude, the fact of the matter is he didn't have that great a year last year, and so I pointed that out. I said like he wasn't great last year. He got a Pro Bowl thing because I think it's more popularity than anything. And I'm thinking, well, why would he worry about what I have to say? Like, you didn't have that great a year, so they signed you. They were ready to move on from Darius Slay. They really were. I mean, the CJ once the CJ Garner thing went bad, that's when they came back in on Slay. But they were kind of willing to cut him adrift without that contract thing. So, players get really sensitive, and sometimes they hear things they shouldn't hear and they shouldn't pay attention to. And to me, that was a classic example. I'm going, what's he coming at me for?
I think that's the big thing. Like they're like super sensitive nowadays, and say in my era, it wasn't that way. I mean, because my thing is when you play bad as a competitor, you're gonna get dogged, and you should, because you're there to be a high performer, and when you got to take the good with the bad, and it's like my daughter now, she's one of the top players on her basketball team, and I have to tell her, sometimes like, look, when you she's like, but they're always coming down on me and they're always yelling at me. And I'm like, sometimes that's because you're the star of the team and they want to kind of get the message through to the other guys. So it's really not talking to you. So just kind of take it, filter it, and just run with it. A lot of these guys, like, I would never, back in my day, even if Twitter was big and Instagram was big and Facebook was big, the internet's undefeated. You're going to lose. So why would you do that? And that's what I try and tell these guys, like, play ball, go to work, do what you're supposed to do. I mean, when it's up, it's up. When it's down, it's down. Like, who cares,
Yeah, listen, and I wasn't coming from a place of not knowledge. I do an Eagles
Right.
postgame show with Seth Joyner and Derek Gunn, who covered the Eagles for a really long time. And we would
Right.
look at Slay every game and go, he's not playing well. Like the last 9 games, he wasn't that good at all. And we watch every play because we had to do the postgame show. So I thought it was fair criticism that to say that like he didn't have a great year. That's really all I said in response. He didn't have a great year, and then he came at me saying I was ass as a talk show host. So all right, well, whatever.
I saw that on Twitter, and I was wondering if you were going to bring it up or not. I was like, all right,
Yeah,
here we go.
it's a classic example. And I listen. I know a player is not going to say that directly. Seth Joyner does, though. You know,
Oh yeah.
Seth doesn't hold back anything. He throws it out there. And he really doesn't care what people think. But by the same token, if somebody criticizes him, he gets a little sensitive and comes right back at him. I go, well, Seth, you said it. So like they're fans. They don't want to hear. Sometimes they don't want to hear the truth about something because they kind of like hug these players. The player becomes like their brother or something, which I never quite understand. But I get the fact that they want to root for their team. So any criticism of their guy, I think certain fans are really sensitive to it.
I want to bring up a question here. Rick Marcus, and he's asking to say, but what did you think about the issue with the LSU with Reese?
It's interesting because I blame the whole thing I blame on Trump, but I don't want to get into like the political ramifications of this. What I'm saying is the climate has been created, which is so bad now. I trash talking to me. I don't care. I love it. Like I love the taunting. I love that. And at first I said, well, I saw it, and I said, well, it's kind of unsportsmanlike. But then I saw that Caitlyn had done it earlier in the tournament to people. I go, well, that's fair game. Like I don't understand why people are complaining about it. But see, what happens now when you get this racial thing, this racial divide that's been created in this country. It's like, okay, black people are very sensitive to being criticized when like the criticism came in from white people. Oh, that's terrible. That was that. And so the climate is so bad that black people go, no, really? That's not terrible. We've been fighting about this our whole lives. And so now because it was a white, you're going to, and see, that's the climate that's been created. And to me, I look at it like trash talking. It was fine. I saw why she did it. If Caitlin Clark hadn't done that earlier, I may have had a different opinion on it, but she got what she deserved. So
Yeah.
But the thing is, she didn't take offense to it because she felt like it was part of the game, and they've been going back and forth. I mean, I think like you said, you're right. The climate of what's going on in the world has a lot to do with it, and I'm kind of sick of it. Like sometimes I see stuff on social media, and I'm just like, really? Like, I mean, here we go again, and it's crazy, and I feel bad for my kids growing up because it's just, it's hopefully we get past it.
It's a sad division. It's like we've gone back in time, and that's the thing that bugs me about everything else. Because what happens now, because of that division in the races, now black people justifiably so go, what, like this is what, because the person was white. You would have never said that if that person wasn't white. And now white people like feel that they have to like lash back and protect their race, which doesn't need protection at all. And like all of a sudden, like they're the victims. Like white people can't be the victims in this particular situation. So I know I've gotten too political with this, but like that's the way I look at it. The climate that's been created was directly involved with that whole episode.
Well, if you look at it too, Mikey Miss, which it doesn't make any sense to me. So you have Jill Biden, apparently she was at a press conference somewhere, and she ends it by saying, oh, well, we think, and I'll tell Joe, we think that we should invite Iowa in there as well because you need to have winners and losers. And again, in the world of participation trophies, exactly what it feels like. So basically, Reese was like,
it was a stupid thing for her to say, and I'm surprised that she wasn't aware enough to like. That's the worst thing you could say. Let's bring them both in. Because now you're talking about, okay, this is a predominantly black team, LSU. So now what? You have to include the white girls from Iowa in there? Like that's the way people are going to look at it. And she should be more aware of that than anybody, and didn't think it through. This isn't a participation trophy. This is like she's saying, well, I wanted to celebrate women's basketball. Well, no, think beyond that. You're making it worse. You're not celebrating women's basketball. You're creating another division. And you should be smart enough to figure that out.
But I admit though, the women's tournament carried the tournament this year because the Final Four for both was way better than the men's. The men, I
It
mean,
really was,
yeah,
Ronnie. I tell you, for LSU to score over 100 points is a pretty amazing feat. I mean, they were going up and down making shots. Scoring 102 points in that kind of a game is amazing to me.
yeah. They shot. And like I said, I give the girl credit for coming off the bench. She's a senior, was a grad transfer coming in. Like I said, dropping 21 points off the bench. That was huge. And I think that was the turning point in the game. I think that LSU had a deeper bench, and that's because Iowa had that same rotation, and when the foul trouble came into play, the bench
Yeah, they were
played a
done.
big part. Yeah,
Yeah, they were
so
pretty much done.
Real
Yeah, they couldn't defend LSU to that extent. LSU was much better and quicker and stronger, and Iowa just wasn't up to it defensively.
Real quick, Angel, before you post the question, just wanted to ask Mike. Speaking of division, the Masters, the Live, the Live League. You know it was going to come up. Freddie Couples made some comments. I personally didn't think that they should allow those guys in the Masters. They're not part of the PGA anymore, but that's just my opinion. You're a golf fan, just like I am. What do you think about like this whole mess that's going on? Is it about the Masters this weekend, or is it about both?
I'm unaffected by the whole thing. I really am. The way I look at it, these guys, I know a lot of people, that's blood money they're getting. But the money that they're getting is like so hard to turn down. I can't, like, I was watching this series on Netflix on the PGA Tour, and Brooks Koepka's going, I'm going to make like $200 million here, and I owe it to myself and my whatever family I'm going to have to make that money. I know there's traditionalists. I don't really follow the Live Tour. To me, those guys did what they want because that's what they felt was best for their lives at that particular point. So I don't get real territorial about it. Like I get it. If I watch a PGA Tour, there are enough great golfers in that tour that I can admire and watch. And so if they want to let these guys play in the majors, it's only better for the fan. The only people that are cheesed about it are like the Rorys of the world who have this territorial thing going on with the PGA Tour, and they don't want those guys involved. But the fans would probably rather see those guys play. Like, do you think the fans care that much about those guys playing in the Live Tour?
No.
I mean,
Commentators seem to, like the big the Tigers and the Rorys do, because they have this preservation thing going. But I don't know. I'm unaffected by it.
Sean, our sports contributor, he says, what are you doing with the 10th and 30th pick in the draft?
I think if the kid from Georgia slides to him at 10, they would take him. I don't know if he's going to slide down that far. I don't know if that little infraction he had is going to push him down. Otherwise, I think they're going to trade back. It's interesting. They had Joey Porter in for an interview this week, who I like a lot. I'm a Penn Stater, but that's not why I like him. I think he's got really good length. I think he's tough. I think he's got the good genes from his dad. If they move like back to 15 and gain a couple picks out of that, and wind up with a starting corner like Joey Porter, who doesn't really have to start right away, I think they may do that. But if they stay at 10 and the kid from Georgia is there, I think they'll take him. But you know what they do with draft picks. They're devoid of draft picks in the middle. They don't like going into a draft like that.
John also says that they need to address the running back situation there, which he names 3 players up there on the screen. And obviously the Eagles, we know supposedly Howie is going to make a big splash. That's what the rumor has been all week long. We'll see there. Then Ryan had let me know earlier about Derrick Henry possibly going to the Cowboys. Is that the solution or the end all to be all with the Cowboys? No, the Cowboys will still be where the Cowboys were this year. And sorry for the Cowboys fans who listen in, but Derrick Henry is not going to make a big difference out there in Dallas. And Jerry Jones, obviously, until that man decides he wants to go away like George Steinbrenner, unfortunately, it's going to be that mess of what it is. I don't believe for McCarthy to be the head coach, I don't believe, just my own opinion, I don't believe Dallas will go anywhere with Mike McCarthy. And I bring this up a bunch of times because that's the way I feel. And I don't know, Mike, if you have the opinion as well, but I just don't believe Mike McCarthy is the head coach for Dallas.
There's a lot of people that think that, Angel. I think there's a lot of people that think Dak can't take him to the next level either. So I don't know. Listen, at running back, I love Bijan Robinson. I think the guy is going to be just a monster in the NFL. You can speak to that, Ronnie. Like that guy. So I don't know what's going to happen with him in the draft. If he's dangling still in the 20s, I wonder if the Eagles would try to trade down and grab him and use that 30th pick and something else. If they move back to 15 and get a couple picks, and then they move in from 30 with a couple picks they can trade, whether they would get him. But that's probably not their move because they don't draft running backs that high. But I love that guy.
Yeah, he's a great fit for them because I mean he can do it all. He can run the ball, he can run between the tackles, outside, inside. He can be effective in the passing game, and that's really the way the game is going. Like, and it's funny that you say if Henry goes to Dallas. I mean, the thing with Henry, I mean, you know what you're gonna get, and it's just people are gonna stack the box, and now that forces you to throw on the outside and. I mean, they're up and down with their passing game. I mean, it's never been consistent. I mean, one minute is this, and then 1 minute is that, and then they have a big, the question at tight end. So, I mean, who knows? But I mean, if you put Henry there, I mean, we all know what you're gonna do. And it's the same situation in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So
that's a classic Jerry move. It's like Mark Cuban grabbing Kyrie. Sometimes it just the flow doesn't work, even though the player's great.
Now, if he would have went to Cincinnati, that makes a splash. Derrick Henry in Cincinnati, that's crazy. I mean, with the pieces that they have, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, that's a perfect fit. But going somewhere where you're going to continue to be one dimensional, that makes no sense.
Right, there's only one Philly team that I haven't, expanded upon here, and that's the Flyers. We've had discussions.
I noticed that you're a hockey fan with that Blackhawks thing.
Yeah, and we're worse than the Flyers are.
Are the Flyers still in Philadelphia? I wasn't aware.
That's what I was going to ask you. Where does the organization go from here? Because let's face it, the last 3, 4, 5 years, they have not been all that great, Mike. So where does this organization go? What do they do?
Probably for the last 10 years, I've talked about the Flyers and their need to I advocated cleansing the whole thing. I mean, changing the colors, the logo. They had to get all these ex-Flyers who were involved in this franchise out of there because that old mindset just. It was like a rotting egg left out for the night. It's like it permeated. You had to get rid of that whole mindset of this Broad Street bully mentality or what works. The game turned many years ago to speed, and they were way behind the 8 ball with that. And I just used the hockey term behind the 8 ball for you, Ryan. So, I have no idea where they're going to go. Danny Briere, is he fresh enough? He's an ex-Flyer. I don't know. Are they going to give him the job? They just changed the ownership a little bit. I don't know. They're so far behind. They don't have any quality young players that other franchises seem to have. So. There's so many. They're 4 years away from being something.
Either something or out of town, one of the two. Because you got God bless Flyers fans who continue every season to buy season ticket packages because I can't do it. I just don't know how in the world I end up doing it. When you spend all your money, and this is where I always put in my 2 cents. When you put tons of money in Gritty, the goofy mascot. If that was your priority as a Flyers, and that's what it seemed like for the last 5 years, if that was your priority, then shame on you because that's what it feels like they cared about is, but let's put Gritty everywhere. And that's what drives me nuts as a Philly fan. That drives me absolutely insane. Versus you got like the Lightning, for example, down here in Tampa Bay, where compared to what they've done in the last 3 to 4 years, you're talking about winning back-to-back championships, which I was here for. The first one, and then obviously the second one right behind it. And then this year they go back into the playoffs as well. You're talking about Jeff Finnick, a guy who believes in his organization, has completely turned around Amalie Arena. He doesn't even own it. He's leasing it. But it was a building that used to be an old factory warehouse, and that place is amazing. And even the fan base is even amazing over there. But it drives me insane with the Flyers way. It's the same old, same old. You can go to any press conference, and every single year, you might as well just say, I'm just here so I don't get fined, and Gritty, take it away. Because that's exactly what it feels like. Nothing's ever going to change with the Flyers.
Well, Tampa Bay does it the right way, and it's like it should be galling to Flyer fans that the two Florida teams are so miles ahead of this traditional hockey power up here called the Philadelphia Flyers. And, yeah, they're just listen, the general manager Fletcher, I think was a mess as a general manager, and they didn't recognize it until too late. So I don't know. Change is always good. We'll see. They have a different mindset.
Hey, Angel, just real quick, I have to let Mike know.
Sure.
We've had Martinez on here a couple of times talking about hockey. And I remember when he was your producer, the funniest thing I ever heard between the two of you was when he called up to order Chinese food as Joe DeCamera. It was this bit that he did. It was hilarious because everything out of Martinez's mouth, he'd order something and then he would say, I'm Joe DeCamera. It's great to be with you today. And it was the funniest thing I ever heard on the show.
Yeah. Jason was good at imitating people. Yeah, he was funny. He must be dying though, Mr. Hockey himself.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him in a while, but he's got to be like he's like part of the broadcast. Like, who listens? I don't even know why they cover the Flyers now. Like, the game story's on page Z on the newspaper. But I go like, okay, what is there news coming out of here? Like, I've forgotten about this whole season. I haven't even looked at 3 minutes of hockey this year.
I haven't even been down here, and I'll catch some of the games this year. Absolutely nothing. And God bless John T, because I'm pretty sure he probably thought, what did I sign up for? Because no matter how he talks to the guys, 10 ways from Sunday, the message doesn't go through. It says like, It goes in one ear, not the other. So God bless him for it. But Rick says, how do we get you down here to Tampa Joe's for an Eagles at Tampa? And simply said, I'll reach out to Vince. We'll put it together with Philly Sports Trips, and we'll get Mike Missanelli down here for Eagles weekend.
Oh, it sounds good. I was just in spring training for a weekend, but I'm actually going in the Tampa area to play golf in about 10 days.
No,
What do you play?
Playing Stream Song and then playing the Copperhead.
Okay.
Oh, nice. Well, maybe while you're down here, hopefully we can try and connect while you're down here, because I'm down here in the Tampa Bay area. So this is been my new home for the last 5 years. I can't even believe I've been down here for 5 years already. But it's a great place. If you want to retire, I'm not trying to influence you one way or the other, Mikey Miss. But if you want to retire,
I'm kind of retired now, so
I know you're retired, but I'm just saying, once you're done. Matter of fact, we'll just listen. The studio set up here. We'll just do the Mike Missanelli podcast from here, and everything else will be just fine.
That sounds good. I'll take you up on that.
All right. But you're talking about Derek Gunn, and obviously he's been on the show multiple times as well, but has become a really good, great friend of mine, and Seth Joyner. And those guys are always fun to talk to, because they will say exactly what they say. And Derek Gunn, the one thing I love about him is Derek Gunn is very sharp on the way he chooses how to say certain things, because he can feel like you get kicked in the ass by Derek Gunn, but he does it so eloquently that you don't see it coming. And that's the best part I think about D Gunn. And it was fun having those guys on here. And again, Seth, we've had him on twice. Derek Gunn, I think we're up to 3 or 4 with him. And both of those guys are so knowledgeable. What's it like when you guys get together, obviously for the post-game show with JAKIB Media? What's it like when you guys, prior to coming on air, what's the feeling in the room?
It's fun to work with those guys. When the opportunity was presented to me, I jumped at it. I thought this is going to really be a fun show. But we watched the game. We have our own green room where we watch the game. And watching the game with Seth is one of the greatest things ever, because he's so, he's aggressive. He's an aggressive guy, and he played aggressive football. And he has no tolerance for defenses that aren't hair on fire aggressive. He was incensed every game with Gannon last year. It just poured out of him. Like, he couldn't stand the way Gannon played defense. And we laugh at him, and we try to tweak him and try to get him off, and he brings it. But I guess Seth, listen, okay, they're not as aggressive as you would like. They're not the Jim Johnson defenses, not the Buddy Ryan defenses. But look at their numbers. I mean, they're one of the best defenses in the league playing the way he's playing it. So, what's the beef? You can't on third down be passive about this play. So it's hysterical. And Derek knows how to get him too. We both have really studied techniques on how to get under Seth's skin, so to bring out more of his passion.
Like I said, there's so much fun with those guys. A lot of the guys we've had on, it's been so great because you get a different perspective from everyone. So it makes it so worthwhile. But I want to go back to as far as your radio career, because every broadcaster has a moment where you either have either the best guest, the best caller, and or the polar opposite, the worst guest and or the worst caller. So if you can go back for again, those of us who followed you on Philly radio, I'll start off with what had to been the worst day on radio for you.
Listen, I had a couple instances where I didn't know I was being caught, but I threw headphones once, and the camera caught me because I thought we were in a commercial when I did it. But I that was a bad moment. I wish I would have never done that. As far as guests go, I mean, I had Charles Barkley as a co-host every year, and he would come in, he loved it, and he would do a 4-hour show with me, and the stories that Charles would tell were just hysterical, and I make sure he would tell them on the air. And the best story he ever told was he when the Sixers were really bad towards the end before they traded him, he didn't like two guys that he played with. One was Armand Gilliam and the other was Charles Shackelford, and he just hated playing with them. He didn't think they were competitive the whole bit, and so they were on a losing streak. And Harold Katz, who was the owner at the time, went to practice after a shoot around and assembled them all in the locker room in chairs in a semicircle and wanted to ask every one of them what they thought was going wrong with his team and why they were losing. So he goes to the first couple guys, and the first guy says, "Well, yeah, Harold, we're not rebounding enough," like stock answers. "Harold, we're not defending enough." He goes, "All right, Charles, what do you think?" And he says, "You really want me to tell you, Harold?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's why I'm asking. I want you to total honesty." He goes, "Okay, I'll tell you why we're losing. Because these two MFs, Shackelford and Gilliam, suck." And he said they got up and charged him like they were sitting on stools. And they got up and ran after him. And he said he picked up a stool. He's warding them off like he was like a lion tamer or something. Like those stories are so fresh with him. And he absolutely the best. Now, the worst guy that David Akers called in once. This is a great story. David Akers, I don't have a lot of respect for kickers, Ronnie. And I know as a football player, you can't say that.
You got to cut him a break, man. He's an alum, man. That's one of my guys.
I know, but like kickers in general, for real football players, like kickers in general, and I know you can't say it because they're the kind of teammates, but I would say it all the time. Kickers on football players. And so in one game, he pulled his hamstring in the game. And he kicked a 24-yard field goal or something to win it with a bad hamstring, so he would it was like he survived a war in Afghanistan or something. He put his head in Donovan's shoulder pads like that, and there was a picture in the Daily News the next day. David Akers, he was like, "Oh God, I just went through a war. I kicked a field goal with a bad hamstring." And so I kind of ripped him the next day on the air, and he called in, and so we had a beef on the air, and he wound up saying, "Yeah, well, I'll kick your ass in any sport you want to play." I'm like, "Dude, come on, man! Like what are you doing?"
Wow.
I made a statement. I think it was You overreacted. I thought you overreacted a little bit. You kicked the field goal. Good. You won the game, and your hamstring was hurting a little bit. But come on, man. These football players go through war. They come out battered and bruised. So I thought it was a little much.
It was, but a lot of people said though about the kickers too. I mean, no offense to the kickers, because I mean they make it in the NFL, but you got one job, and half the time you can't do that one particular job. So, but it is what it is. They're part of the game, and it is what it is. But if they went away, I don't think anybody would miss them, honestly.
Listen, man, I see how football players practice. All right, I've been to a lot of training camps. Those training camps aren't fun. And there's many Eagles training camps, and I'm watching the kickers and the punters. They're tossing a beach ball around with each other. These dudes over here blasting each other and go through weight training and all this. And I go, come on. I understand you're necessary evil, but please.
Hey, Angel, just real quick.
Sure.
Mike, how's Shima the Sheba?
Shima the Sheba's great. She's running around here somewhere.
And
You get my children's book, The
yes,
Adventures of Shima the Shiba. Yeah,
yeah.
I had a lot of fun writing it.
And give me a good Italian dish that I could like make that's real easy. Don't give me pasta and like spaghetti and meatballs. Like I'm talking like a real Italian dish.
A real Italian dish involves pasta, bro.
Well, okay.
Come on. What do you want to make?
Oh, just give me something that you would make that most people wouldn't.
It's real easy to make. Like a nice chicken parmigiana. You want to do that?
Okay.
You get a little chicken breast, right? You slice it real thin. You parallel cut it. You put your hand on top of the breast. You get the knife and you go into this way, right? And you cut them into real thin slices. And then you you dip them in egg and breadcrumbs and you fry them up. And then you got to make a marinara sauce with it. All right. So like a lot of people don't buy jar sauces. It's easy to make like a real sauce. You buy whole tomatoes. You put them in a food processor. You with a little olive oil and garlic and you saute it. You put a little tomato paste in there to thicken it up. Beautiful. Very simple. All right.
I'm gonna
All right.
You got your sauce. You got your chicken breast parmesan. It's real easy. A guy like you can do it, Ryan. Don't worry about it.
I'm going to bring up this last comment here by Sean where he says that Tyreek Hill says he's planning on retiring at the end of the season from with Miami. Then he's on to something else. And the one thing as well, Mikey Miss, is that you hear obviously now Tom Brady claims that he's retired. He claims that he's retired. But then he was together with the boys all over again, I guess in the Bahamas or whatever. And there was that one situation too when he talked about that he wanted to be in Miami. So do I believe in my heart that Tom Brady's retired? No. Do I believe he ends up in Miami? Yes. So
Wow.
I don't know.
I don't know. You stop. Like, is he working out? Like, I don't know. He doesn't look like he's working out to the point where he can actually go into a pro football team and do something. Like, once you get to that age, you stop working out. There's no way you can come back and be that efficient. So I think it's all a lot of bluster.
I think so too. Well, I mean, again, but he had of course, the year the Eagles finally get back to the Super Bowl, he decides to announce a retirement. Last year, the same thing when the team went to the Super Bowl, minus the Eagles. Same. Oh, let me take the spotlight away and announce my retirement during Super Bowl week. So not surprising. It's just what he does. Down here in Tampa Bay, they talk about now that it's a big relief that he's gone, and that now they can go back to playing and doing things the way they wanted to with Todd Bowles. So. And it's going to be a lot of chatter. Of course, everybody knows this. Pretty soon, we'll be coming up with the draft. There'll be 30 million things to talk about over there in Tampa Bay. So, and I'm pretty sure we can get you back on as the draft gets closer, and then before the season comes around. Because I would love to get your take as well. What happens here during the draft?
I love it. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun with you guys.
No problem. So, thank you to
sir.
Mikey Miss, who came on with us tonight. Again, you guys can follow him on the Mike Missanelli Podcast on YouTube, Amazon, Apple.
Oh, by the way, I had a comedian Nikki Glazer on.
Oh,
That'll be tomorrow's podcast.
Oh, nice.
And she's crazy as hell, so you might want to listen to that.
all right.
Nikki Glazer, right? She's pretty nuts. And she doesn't hold back. Think about a podcast. You can say anything you want, like no FCC regulations. So
Exactly. That's the best part. That's why, listen, I will say selfishly, even though I know you loved your radio career, but I like that you're doing now a podcast because you can finally say what you wanted to say without being, held back from anything.
Well, I pretty much said what I wanted to say, which is probably like why the end came. But finally, like for 35 years, I pretty much said what I wanted to say. That's the only way I could do it, man. I always thought like if I had to censor myself in my head, I wouldn't be that good. Like if something stopped me from saying what I really wanted to say, then how good would I be as a sports host guy? So that's why I always let it fly.
Yeah, no, it's all
And
right.
it worked out for the most part. So
It did. It did. And we
a dream for you growing up to do this?
I'm sorry, Ronnie.
Was that a big dream for you growing up? or
I
you just
had
kinda
absolutely,
stumbled-
I had no idea about ever being a sports host. It happened by accident. I started out as a newspaper reporter. I thought I was going to be a major league baseball player. I was a Division I baseball player, but I did. I fortunately paid attention to the other side of it, so I was able to start a career in journalism. And radio just happened by accident because it started in Philly in like 1991 or something. And the guys from the newspaper got together and said, "Well, let's go on the air and talk about what we're talking about." And So the more we did it, the more that we liked it. So a lot of the guys that made their mark Sports Talk Radio really came from the Inquirer sports staff. They like poached all of us, and I just ran with it. Like I didn't know where it was going to go at all, and so I had a law degree. I figured if it doesn't work, I can do like many other things, and it just worked, and it sucked me in for like 30 years. So. That's the way it works. It's all by accident, man.
What was your biggest dream event to cover or be a part of?
I covered Super Bowls. I covered Final Fours, national championship games. I covered baseball. When I was a writer, I flew around and covered a lot of things. That's when newspapers were viable, when they had money to spend. So once you get into sports radio, you're kind of grounded, except for certain trips. But I cover a lot of big events as a newspaper reporter on Deadline. That was fun.
That's what's up, man.
Sean has his last comment here. He says, it's sauce, never gravy. You agree, Mike?
Well, some people say gravy, some people say sauce. And depending where you are, like in South Philly, they say gravy. But like I was brought up, they said sauce. So, whatever. Whatever somebody wants me to call it, I call it. All I know is that I make a good gravy sauce. I know that. That's undisputed.
Well,
that comes from my grandmother. I watched her cook. I would sit and make fresh pasta with her, like in gnocchis. I would, like, as a kid, she would make me, I'd roll thousands of them. Like, she would send the dough down to me, and I'd roll them off a fork. So I watched her a lot.
Well, it's like, so the food distributor that I work for that makes the pretzels that I talked about earlier for Penguin Pretzels, he's Italian as well, and he's up from New York, which is, normally New Yorkers, Philadelphians, they don't get along, but we have a great bond as far as when we work, and we'll talk about the teams and everything else. But he's talking about the monstrosity of a table that he's going to have for Easter. And I wish I can stop by and grab a couple plates and take, because between him and his wife, it looks like they're going to make some amazing food. So I can't wait to hear what they make.
Well, here's the thing about Italians. So Easter's supposed to be the ham, Thanksgiving's the turkey, Christmas is whatever. But with Italian families, there's always got to be the pasta with it. Like you can't just go turkey. You just can't go ham. There's got to be like a whole pasta course. That's what Italians do. So I tell you, those pretzels look good when they're crawling across the screen. They look better on the screen than I do.
Well, I'll make sure I'll send you some up to Philly. They're absolutely delicious. So during Christmas time, there's one company that actually has them do almost like a croissant ball, and it's stuffed with Nutella. When it comes out of the oven, the most delicious thing you will ever taste. But they only do it for like the 1 month, and he does some other specialty stuff as well. I will make sure that you get some at home.
All right, sounds good, bro.
No problem. All right, well, listen. Mikey Miss, thank you for joining us, and thank you to everyone who joined us over at AMP Radio, especially over on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game, and all over social media. We thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you all and hear you all come next week, next Thursday, with either our newest guest and/or we'll find out if Ryan goes back to being a Dallas Cowboy fan. So stay tuned to that come next week, and I had to leave that one with Ryan. But nevertheless, thank you, everyone. It's been episode 182. I'm Angel Martinez from Broad Street South. Have yourselves a great night.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.